good.
Well, I want to thank you again for taking the time to meet with me from a random message on Instagram, not knowing who I am. I really appreciate your time.
Pleasure. Love it. I love all these opportunities.
So, just as we get started, because
Mm.
I had the misconception about your agency from your podcast. It's called "Is This Why You're Single?" Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We always felt that "This Is Why You're Single" is just too arrogant to tell people exactly why they are single. I think it should be up to them to maybe see little parts of them in our podcast or our ebook and then decide, actually, do you know what? I'm guilty of that. Maybe I should amend that.
I
It's
like
up to
that. That's a
them.
good approach. I think people are more open when you ask it to them in a question than, a
Yeah.
declaration. So,
What do you think, Rachel?
well, that's asking for a lot of self-awareness, though,
It
of
is.
people. So, yeah.
It is, but I don't think you're ready for dating unless you are self-aware to know, what you're doing right or wrong. I think you should wait until you get that moment of anagnosis or that enlightenment that you actually realize, actually, this is who I am, and this is probably who I need to be close to and looking for.
I love that. Okay, that's a good answer. Okay, so tell me, because I had the misconception based on how I found you, that you were just like a one-man shop, kind of maybe like in a little village, grassy area, trying to get the locals to connect. And I thought, maybe there's something here for me as far as learning how to date when I'm here in the UK. But I want to know first about intro matchmaking and kind of who you are.
Okay, so myself and I was always working in property and sales. I was always in sales. I loved it. I loved working with people. Then I met my wife through my brother, who is living in Sausalito, and he was a singer-songwriter back in the day. And he asked my now wife, who used to run radio stations, to play some of his music, and she did. And he thought, well, I better say thank you. So he was back in Ireland, and he said, "Okay, I'll bring you out for a drink." And then he said, "Feargal, you're single. I found out Rena's just recently single, so I think you two will be pretty good. She's a hard hitter. She's a real firecracker. She's really like on the ball. She's very professional, very she's a go-getter. She's very ambitious, and she's really good looking, and she's blonde, and da-da-da-da-da." So long story short, he brought us out and connected us, and within 1 month we were living together.
Oh.
And our first date was Michael Bublé, and I brought her and her two friends to Michael Bublé in the RDS, and she was quite surprised because, first of all, I was ringing her when I was trying to court her, and she thought, "Why are you ringing me? Just text me, you weirdo. I don't do phone calls." And I'm all about just getting it done sooner rather than later, but I also I hate that people misinterpret texts and they completely get it wrong. And you're thinking, that's not what I meant by that. So you can tell an awful lot by the tone. So I would call all the time. We talk for an hour, 2 hours, whatever. Then after a couple of weeks, I said, "I'm not interested in seeing anyone else. I think we should be official." And then within a month, we moved in together. Because I kind of said, I think I should move in with you because you have a house, because she's slightly older than I am. So she did things sooner than I did. And I said, well, my lease is about to come up on this apartment. So I might as well just do this. It makes no sense to start another year's lease, obviously. Am I right? And she was thinking, well, have I got a choice? But okay, let's do this. And she was astounded that an Irish guy could be as forward as that, because it's quite common here, and we'll go to that probably later on, that Irish guys are very, very, very slow to put themselves out there, slow to engage, slow to admit that they actually like someone, because the fear of rejection and getting hurt, and it's just too much. They'd rather actually just repress than say nothing. But ourselves, we got together, and then within a few months, we were just sort of talking about our friends and our family members who are moaning about being single. And this country has a lot of single people, and it's really hard to meet people because, again, we repress everything. We don't put ourselves out there. And so we thought, geez, let's become like the most private and confidential dating agency, matchmaking agency in the country. Let's model it like a GP surgery, where it's totally anonymous. No one gets your surname, photograph, or phone number. Nothing ever goes online. So we said, my job in property, it's kind of annoying. I'm sick of there was like a property crash going on, so the prices were going really low, and commissions were slow to come in. So I think, oh God, I'm sick of working for the man. I want to do my own thing. And she was sick of working for the radio station because it was just a little bit too far away and all that. So we decided let's become the most established and professional and private and confidential agency. So we and when it was the recession, you were able to get really good deals on amazing, units and accommodation and rent, and advertising was really cheap. Like staff were much cheaper than they used to be. So we called in all our favors in radio as well. We were able to do lots of advertising on radio stations for a cost per customer, as opposed to paying high rate cards. So we got our name out there fairly quickly, and we were over Cafe on Seine on Grafton, on Dawson Street originally, and then we moved to Grafton Street about 7 years ago. We opened up, and it was just myself and Rena working there for the first good 6 or 7 or 8 months. So we were taking on all the new people. We were advertising. I was doing as many radio interviews and TV interviews as I possibly could, because we used one of the biggest PR companies in the country, because I had previously sold her current house, which is a Martello Tower in Dublin. So that was pretty cool. Because she said, I'm not going to miss out on getting my Martello Tower, because the last one that went for sale, Bono bought. And she said, I'm not missing out again. So I was like, okay, let's get you a Martello Tower. Anyway, that's a sideline story. So we set this thing up, and within about a year, we were the biggest in the country. And now, I suppose, rolling on 13 and a half years, fast forward, we have a team of 10 matchmakers full-time. We organize over 100 introductions or dates every single week all over the 32 counties of Ireland. We have thousands of members between the ages of 20 and 93 years of age, and everything in between. And everyone's either single, separated, divorced, or widowed, but looking for long-term committed relationships, companionships, or marriage. That's an absolute must. They also have to abide by policies, which we can probably go into later on, which is probably very important, actually. And it's the main reason why there's so many single people in this country. And so we became kind of a club, as opposed to just an open door policy matchmaking agency. We don't just, it's not like the old diddly eye, tell me your star sign and whatever else, and we'll do this little hocus pocus leprechaun-y type stuff, magic dust. It's none of that. We deal in facts, we deal in stats and figures. We look at CSO, the Central Statistics Office, all the time to update ourselves on if a person is living in a certain location, what should they need to be open to in terms of distance, in terms of age, expectations. That's a major issue in all over the world. Obviously, men having outrageous expectations that the woman should be 20 or 30 or 40 years younger than he is, because he's got a bit of money, or else he has no money, but he just thinks he's entitled to get that because he's a guy. And then the educational snobbishness, that's a huge thing. So these are all things we didn't know in year one when we opened our doors, naively. And so the first year was really tough. And we thought, oh my God, we've quit our good jobs, our pensionable jobs. And now we're on our own, and everyone told us that we're crazy to be a matchmaking agency, but we just didn't listen. We said, no, we're quite dogged that way, and we're quite driven. If we know we want to do something, we do it, and we don't stop. But then we started questioning ourselves. We said, but people are so difficult. People are so horrendously challenging to deal with, and no one wants to travel anywhere. They're all really up themselves in terms of ego is probably coming out, but it's probably insecurities camouflaged as arrogance. They all claim to look 20 years younger than they are, even though they look every single day their age. And then this academic snobbishness from a whole load of women to men were like ringing up saying, I've got a PhD from Trinity College. I'm a partner in the law firm. I'm a doctor. I'm a surgeon in here. So I only want to meet guys who have the same level of qualifications as I have. So I suppose what it's done over the years is it taught us that people are amazing for the most part, but you really need to home in on what the hurdles and the obstacles that people are putting in their way, and you need to identify those, put it to the person, and tell them that if you're willing to tweak what you're doing, then you're more than welcome to come on board, and we will definitely work together to try and find you your best possible match. But if you are guilty of saying things like, I had a woman on the phone about half an hour ago, and she's 59, 60 next week, and she insisted on never meeting a guy who was retired, because the last guy that she met was retired and couldn't understand that she still worked. I said, well, that's a bit of a sweeping statement to make about every single guy over 60, because yes, they probably will be a lot of retired people in that age group. How about approaching it from the point of view of, I would just like to meet a guy who has freed up enough time to dedicate himself to me and to our relationship. Does that sound okay, Mary? Mary said, no, it doesn't. And I had that experience, and you can't take that from me. I was like, I'm not trying to take it from you, Mary, but I'm just saying, I think you're shooting yourself in the foot here. And she was a person, an example of one of my 20 today that I just said, I don't think, with respect, we are the best fit. And I wish you all the best, Mary. So, you can't get success with that person. And so intro, it really helped myself. I run this now. Rena doesn't do this anymore. Rena is doing another business altogether. So I've learned that there are those that can be pleased and those that can't. And I've learned the most valuable thing is, I hate the expression, what's meant for you won't pass you by, because it really does. And people in Ireland especially are very much asleep at the wheel, and they hope that it's just going to happen upon themselves. And they'll be out one night and someone will just turn up and be like, yeah, have the meet cute moment. And it's very Disney-like. And as I think it's, and not to sound like I'm laying into Americans, I love America more than anything. And my brother is there, but there can be, we get a lot of inquiries from America. An awful lot, who may have met somebody who was Irish on holidays, and her name was, I don't know, Fanula, and she had lovely fiery red hair, and she was a great Colleen, and she had lovely freckles, and we got on so well because she said, hello, hi, how are you, my name is Fanula, and so therefore we must be destined to be together, so I have to be with an Irish person. And they use that one moment, and it's so nice and so romantic and so beautiful to think that someone could have such hope and aspirations that something like that could happen. And it could happen. But if I can say, Irish people need a little bit more of that Disney. And sometimes I would say Americans need a little bit more of the, not pessimism, but realism. And not to, like, Irish people share not so much. They're a little bit guarded. They're a little bit, sure, say nothing, like the twitchy curtains and the nosy neighbors of all the people around here. They'll all be talking about you. Whereas I meet an American, I know everything that happened to their parents when they separated, when the child was 6, and what effect it's had on them, and how they're a little bit scared of getting close to people because, my father was a little bit this way, my mother was a little bit fond of the drink, and I know everything about their lifestyle that you would never get from an Irish person.
Are you saying we overshare?
I do think there's a large portion of oversharing going on with people in the States.
I'm definitely guilty of that. You can't offend me. So it's okay to, I need more. I like to be a balance of Disney and realist, definitely. Yes. And some days I'm way more Disney and some days I'm way more realist. And actually, some of the things I struggle with, and here's a question for you that came up for me. And it's funny because you're describing your first year as a business owner, intro matchmaking. That was my first year in dating. I was just like, okay, Disney and everything's going to be great. And I was like, ooh, people are yucky and they're not nice and they judge you and they ghost you and they do all sorts of stuff. So I definitely like you, but I haven't grown to the size that you have, thankfully, in a good way. I have learned a lot of lessons, but there are a couple that I still wonder about. For example, this balance of settling, and maybe you don't like the word settling, but settling and being overly picky or judgmental. Like, I went out with someone that I had no physical attraction to, but on paper, this man is like an ideal candidate. He checks all the boxes, but I'm not physically attracted to him. And for me, like, passion and sex is an important, I mean, probably for most people, hopefully, an important component of a relationship. So, like, I don't want to be like kind of ew every time he tries to touch me. So what's the balance there? How do you know if you're settling and pushing yourself or you're being a jerk?
I think if you've got some solid confidants in your close inner circle who will fill you full of honesty and not hot air, that's very important, because I get every day Circa, how could you possibly date this guy? I mean, look at you. You're this, you're that height, you're beautiful. Your skin looks so amazing for your age. You eat fish all the time. You've got serious omega levels. You drink 10 pints of water every single day. You look 10 years younger. He is like your grandfather. Seriously, what are you doing? Even though he might be totally appropriate for her and the nicest guy ever who will provide for her, who not provide for her financially, but who will provide a nice, stable sort of environment, who will be a 50-50 partner, companion, and she could learn to absolutely really engage with him and just get close and close and closer to him. But the more friends you have in your inner circle that are telling you that you could do better, the more you start to think that, oh, I need to raise this bar. So it makes you then start to feel superhuman. Or you might well have been happy with that person, but all your friends are going to judge you if you go near that guy who they think is icky. So then you're thinking, geez, I would have gone there, but now I can't because they'll all judge me. So it's really important not to have too many cooks spoiling things for you. But also not to think like a 15-year-old whereby, oh, I know straight away, Feargal. I know like instantaneously if I'm attracted to that person. So don't even bother. But we don't show photographs. Nobody in intro gets surnames, photographs, or phone numbers, and nothing ever goes online. So, you know, a lot of the time people say men are all about looks. They want big this, they want blonde this, they want da-da-da-da-da. Men, well, obviously 14 years in business has proven that is not always the case. If the guy is clued in, copped on, street smart, if he knows what he's about, what the men are looking for is, I just want down-to-earth, grounded, genuine, decent, normal. Yes, she looks after herself, takes a pride in her appearance, but I'm not looking for a supermodel. I'm not looking for whatever. Whereas women's bar is way up here. Way. I mean, they want the George Clooney. They want the fine wine drinking. They want the skiing twice a year. They want the living in the whatever house. Not looking for financial gain, but they're looking for the fact that he must be 6'4". He must be, you know, into this, that, and the other. But the average height of a male in Ireland is 5'7.5". And the average height of a woman is 5'5.5". So when they say to me, I'm just being honest, Feargal, I'm just not attracted to guys unless they're over 6'2". I'm like, it's not about you being honest. That's like starting a sentence by saying, not to be a total bitch, but, and then you say something really bitchy. It doesn't justify it. And I have to deal in reality here. And I have to be saying, no, it's about numbers, guys. You're saying you want this, but I'm telling you, this is the actual fact. Now there's guys breaking their knees and extending out their bones to get 2 inches, 3 inches taller, literally. I know. Yeah. So it's outrageous. I only heard about that in the last week. I thought, geez, for the sake of 2 or 3 inches. So my point is,
also, I'd rather have a short guy that's happy with who he is than someone breaking his knees to
decapitated. Yeah. I know.
Weird numbers game.
Well, that's the thing. But then the settling thing. I mean, it's funny you say that because Irish people, myself and Rena, if we went online to try and meet each other, we never would have, because she would have gone for a 6'4" rugby player, and I would never have gone older. And now she is older, and I am the same height, if not an inch, probably shorter, truth be told. And she likes wearing 5'4" inch heels. So, and I'm like, that's fine. But if you're semi-secure in yourself, and you know who you are, and you have a nice relationship, and you know that there's an inner self-awareness and a self-belief and an inner confidence that's come in from, you know, childhood or wherever, then it won't matter whether, you know, she's towering over you or whatever. But the settling thing, I really think it is a phrase that I don't love. And it's not, to settle is not lowering expectations. It's just having reasonable ones and understanding that maybe the type that I've been going for all along hasn't been working. So when they say to me, I want that type, this isn't my type, that doesn't fall into the category of what I describe as my type. I say, well, that's great, Mary, because your type hasn't been working for the last 20 years when you've been looking to meet Mr. Right. So I think you need to let us tweak what you're doing and listen to your advice. So people in HR often are they micromanage. Not for me to make sweeping generalizations. I talk about people doing that now. I'm going to do it. HR people often bring work into dating too much, and they start interviewing the actual, you know, date. And you're like, no. You don't want to interrogate. You want to ask as many questions that you seem interested, but not so much that he's thinking, Jesus, this is tiresome. I mean, I haven't gotten anything out of you. What's happening here? So if we're not self-aware enough to understand that what we're doing and what we're putting out there could be off-putting, then there's a major issue. But if it continues, if it's serial dating, and if you're continuously going on date after date after date, and some people I would talk to would go on 20 dates a week, They just go back a cappuccino, and they'd spend 3 to 5 minutes, and they will judge the person based on the fact that, the belt doesn't match his shoes. He's wearing a brown belt, but they're black shoes. That's gross, Jesus. Or like, a lot of the women will slag off some American men wear like the baggy jean pants and just ill-fitted suits, like big, like horrible suits. So, Irish people, they're quite judgmental when it comes to clothing and when it comes to fashion. I don't know if you're seeing that over here.
No, that's
it's
tip.
just they do take a pride in their appearance, and they do like a snug fit. And so that's one thing. But women will often say, "Oh my God, I couldn't possibly date him. Look at that tash. Look at that the facial hair. Oh no." But then there was one guy that went on a date with the woman, and he was just a sloppy eater. And he would always have food down his top. And he'd go out on dates, but like we're thinking, geez, why do you not know where your mouth is? What is wrong with your spoon and your fork? What is going on? But the women always wanted to see him again because guess who he looked like? Paul Rudd. So she's like, whatever, I can deal with the food, but like, he looks like Paul, so I can buy him a new top. So there's a little bit of like, okay, you can eat like a child, but you are pretty hot, so it's okay. So people will make exceptions for certain people, but the looks thing is a funny one. We don't show the photographs, and that's huge, but women will often say, I'm just not attracted unless he's this. Men will never go into the detail as much as women will. That's actually true. In terms of being open to being surprised is the major key thing that an awful lot of people aren't. They try to find their carbon copy of what they do. Well, I love tennis and I love playing golf on Sundays. So, I mean, if he doesn't do golf, well, I don't know how it's going to work. I was like, why don't you just do your golf and then let him do his whatever, and then you meet up after. You do you, let him be him, and then that's a lot more fun. Finding a carbon copy is so dull. And there's no proper conversations or debates going to go on. It's going to be really just vanilla. So not having a type is so key, and not being too quick to judge, and not expecting the sparks to be just bursting out of everywhere.
That's what I wanted to ask you about. Last week when I was home, I went on a date with this guy, and he was fine. It was fine. Like, he was nice. He had good hobbies. I didn't want to do jujitsu. I'm happy he's doing jujitsu. I found it attractive that he had these hobbies he was doing with his kids. I found all these great qualities about him. I didn't feel a spark, but it was fine. It was a nice first date. And at the end of it, I was like, yeah. I think that I should message him and say thank you for that, to let him know that, like, if he wants to go out again, I'm open to it. But I haven't made up my mind yet. Yeah. I'm not there. And he replied and said, you're a spectacular lady. I know you'll find your best match soon. I just didn't find that deeper connection that I was looking for. And I thought, we went to lunch at a like fast food, healthy restaurant. Like, how much of a connection are you going to get in an hour sitting on a patio in a crowd? Like, should I have like ripped your clothes off? I don't know. And to me, it felt like, oh, okay, maybe I was wrong in waiting to see if something could grow. Maybe he was right that you should feel something. You should be excited to see the person again. But it sounds like you're saying, give it a chance to open up to something. It wasn't repulsive. It wasn't like we hated each other. It was just like a fine conversation that you'd have with someone standing in line with you at the Starbucks, you know?
Yeah, and I think the key here, whenever we organize a lot of dates, I think the key is for the individuals to say it to the other person and show their interest right there and then, instead of leaving, because the other person will doubt themselves, start second guessing themselves, and think, oh, well, he didn't ask for my number, so clearly he's not interested. So that then will make me start saying, well, feck him, I'm not interested either. I don't care, even though they might be. So like ego can be bruised quite easily. And so then the person then starts to say, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't. So but if he's on a date, and I often say to guys, would you please just tell the person that you want to bring them to the restaurant that they mentioned down in Tipperary or over in Cork or whatever, for their next date, and have some plan in place, to proactively have a plan in place and say, in a non-threatening way, don't say, give me your number, Mary, but just say, here's my number, Mary. I definitely want to see you again. And that shows that, you know, I'm confident. I know that you're definitely going to respond to my text. I know you're going to get on to me. And like, guys showing women that they are confident in this country anyway is really important. America, I don't think you have that issue of guys not being confident enough. It's probably the opposite. In fairness, I would imagine. I do imagine.
Usually it's more they're
But
not
I just think,
interested. Like they just,
yeah,
like
yeah,
it's attractive when they say, "I want to see you again." I like that, but I don't always get that.
yeah.
So in that scenario, and what can the woman say to like let the guy know, or should it always be up to the guy to like say, "Here's my number"?
Oh, geez, no. But guys can be intimidated by some women's overconfidence as well. Guys do like the whole hunter-gatherer kind of chase thing is still important to guys deep down. So if they feel that the woman is either super successful and intimidatingly so, or that she doesn't need me in any way, shape, or form. She doesn't need me financially. She doesn't need me to whatever. If you appear to be a person that just could take or leave me and you'll still be so fine, then you're fine. But then the other thing is, other guys don't want the woman to be a sponge and to be expecting that he's going to pay for everything the whole time and be kept and move into his house all the time. So some people just can't be pleased. And that's why I'm saying you have to strike that balance of being interested and interesting on the dates. You need to say, look, you know what? Easy breezy. If you want to see me again, I'd like to. I mean, I'm not saying that there was like, it was like, palpable chemistry right now, but we are here in this little fast food vegan joint with loads of random people here, so it's probably not going to be alarm bells and or sparks flying right now, but I think it will be cool. There's an event happening next week. How about being my plus one? If you want to, great. If you don't, easy breezy, whatever. Not looking like you really want him to say yes right there and then is important, but at the same time, I hate mind games. I hate them, and I hate people saying, oh, let's wait a few days before we text. I can't stand that. Again, we're not 15. We just need to say, and time is precious and life is short. And so I think people just be totally honest and upfront from the get-go and say, look, we're here. It's a Tuesday afternoon. It's sunny. It probably would be nice to do a more romantic kind of a setting to find out more about each other. If there's even an ounce of spark, I tell all our people just to go on a second date to exhaust the possibility. Because sometimes the guy might take the guitar out after 3 dates and be like, Jesus Christ, I didn't know you can sing like this. I didn't know you write your own music. This is ridiculous. I'm really attracted to you right now. And so then it's like, boom, here we go. And they surprise themselves. So allow yourself to be pleasantly surprised and not to, like, I had one woman who said no to a guy because she had in her head that she wanted to have blonde babies. And this guy had auburn hair, but he was ideal for her in every way. She refused him because he had auburn hair. So there are some people who are just guilty of complete self-sabotage. And they're never going to allow themselves to ever be happy when they're ridiculous about that stuff. I mean, another woman said, I'll only meet the guy if he drives around, if he's driven around Italy in a convertible car, classic car. I said, are you joking? Is this actually a joke? And she said, no. And she saw a movie and she was really attracted to the guy in the movie who did that. And she thought, that's going to be the guy for me. If a guy has done that, that means that he's open enough. He drives classic cars and he loves the wilderness. He likes fine wines. That means it must be the guy for me. I mean, that stuff is terrifying. And that's how people think a lot of the time. And we're thinking, no, guys, is the guy or the woman going to be kind and caring? Are they going to look after you if you're sick? Are they going to be a good parent to your children if you have them? Are they going to want a 50-50 partnership? Are they going to be kind, yeah. And nice? And are they attractive? Yes, great, lovely. So I want attractive.
But like, to me, I feel like people that think like that, I can't even relate to. I mean, because it's not just how they feel probably about a partner. They probably feel like that in every area of their life. So in a situation like that, do you try to convert them to your way of thinking and open them up? Or do you just leave them how you found them and go, thank you, but this is not a match?
For the first 10 years of intro, I used to try and be a superhero and convert. And then we got too busy and I got old and I'm 40 nearly next week, the week after. And so I said, no, life is short. I'm not going to battle you if you're this way now. And you could be 20. You could be a really annoying 20-year-old who just won't see anyone else's viewpoint. And I'm like,
70-year-old. I'm sure the older men that want a 25-year-old are just as infuriating.
Oh, I mean, I definitely don't spend time with those. And we get about 4 or 5 calls from 65 to 70-year-old countrymen who would live on the farm. In Ireland, what's very normal is for the eldest son to inherit the land and the farmhouse, but they will then remain on with the parents, looking after them in their older years, and then they'll die at 90 or 80 or whatever, and then the son is there 65 and thinks, oh yeah, hey, light bulb moment, I think I want kids, and I think I'll call Intro and ask them for a 30-year-old woman. And I'm like, yeah, okay, well, you see, I can't ask the solicitor Circa to move down from Dublin 4 down to Tralee and Kerry to have a baby and be your little baby making machine. Would you believe? Because she has a choice here. Women have choices. Do you realize? And so, yeah, he's usually, but you're like, I mean, I'm just a man who wants children. I need an heir to pass on my land to, and why can't I get that? I was like, you can't just, like you're buying a car, demand the Mercedes have the beige leather interior and the 22-inch rim wheels. It's not like that. And they really think it's transactional. They really think it's like, well, if I'm paying you for a service, I expect you to get what I'm looking for.
Like a mail order bride kind of situation.
Yeah. And women will do it all the time as well. And it's terrifying. Like the whole thing about the academic snobbishness is a major, major, major issue from women only towards men. Because in Ireland, for every one woman who has third level education, there's only 0.6 of an equivalent male. So in Ireland, an awful lot of women are guilty of equating intelligence solely with academic qualifications, as opposed to looking at emotional intelligence and drive, ambition. I mean, look at Elon, look at Mark, look at all the biggest billionaires around the world. They're all usually college dropouts. They didn't complete anything. They just are little, genius type guys who have done okay. Maybe they've made a few decisions in life that have been questionable, like everyone. But in Ireland, there's an awful lot of builder types, let's say, like guys would have left school at 15 and they're now enormous, building contractors with maybe 200, 300 guys working for them. The women that say no to those guys would be delighted if they let it happen and met the person, because they usually have to be uber charismatic, amazing communication skills. They're really driven. They're really motivated. They're usually extremely funny and quick-witted because they had to think on their feet and they had to just get stuff done. Whereas then if they're usually choosing to only meet guys who have 25 letters after their names, who went to Trinity College, who went to Queen's University, who went to Harvard, who went to whatever, usually those guys have problems making eye contact a lot of the time, and they can't even hold a conversation. And this is the danger. We get fixated on certain types and specific sort of characteristics that we think is right for us, and then we don't deviate from that, and we just get tunnel visioned, and we just focus on that, and we don't listen to other people. We're just like blah 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 blah. I'm not listening to sense. No. And it's like, no, guys, would you just stop for a second and listen and understand that we have become now globally trademarked. Intro has, and so we're a fully registered Irish-owned, globally trademark agency that's going to launch our franchise across Europe and the UK. And you don't get, that unless you're doing something right or different. And 14 years in a business like this is very unusual. They usually last about 3 to 6 months because, it's torture. Sometimes it's torture. To remain this kind of positive is very unusual. We're just a bit weird, alien type personalities, myself and Rena anyway. And everyone says this to us because we've got 2 other businesses as well. And we're thinking like, what are you guys doing? How does like one day of what we're experiencing would make people insane? Like the stuff that comes out of people is just, people threaten to sue you all the time. You'll know this from your previous life. They threaten, he wasn't hot. He didn't love me. Mary will go out with John. Mary will like John, but then discover John didn't like her. Then think he was a crap date. You didn't bother matching me correctly at all. You're terrible matchmakers. I want a refund. If you don't give me a refund, I'm bringing you to the small claims court. I was like, all right. Well, I'm really sorry, but dating is kind of difficult. And I can't force Johnny to love you because this is how you act. And now you're threatening to sue me and you're wondering why he didn't love you, but she doesn't get it. So
I don't even want to date for myself. I can't imagine being you and being involved in all these people's dating and their triggers. And like, I mean, that as a former coach, like people in their triggers and then they take it out on you because they don't want to own their own stuff is the most horrifying thing. Like for me as a business owner, I'm trying to help you and you're taking your childhood traumas out on me because,
before they even join, they kind of, some people have in their head this sort of animosity towards us because they're thinking, well, F you, I can't believe I need to join you. I feel like a failure. And I was like, What are you approaching it this way for? This is not a bad thing to do. If you want to get fit, you go to the gym. If you want to get educated, you go to college. And if you want to meet someone and you don't want to get attacked and murdered, you don't go on to Tinder and Bumble and POF and whatever else where you can just go on for free and meet God knows what kind of lunatic. So if you want to be protecting yourself and put yourself into a pool of like-minded individuals, stop moaning about the fact that you're doing this and just come on in and know that it's actually a very proactive, positive, and forward thinking way of actually meeting people who have to abide by rules, who have to agree with the policies laid out. So it's not a case of Johnny agreed, but Mary's a weirdo. It's not a case. Everyone has to do the same thing. They all pay the same. They all get the same. So it's like a club for like-minded individuals who understand that this is a highly emotive, very subjective industry to be involved in. There has to be a level playing field whereby every single person has to abide by the same rules, and they're going to all play ball. But does it automatically mean that there's going to be success? No. We can't go on the dates for the people. We can't make the spark and the chemistry happen. But when people say things like, "Oh, well, he lives there, and I live in, like, I'm in Newport, but he's in, I don't know, Silicon Valley, or I don't know, whatever. How are we going to make it work?" I'm like, well, if the two of you, as two grown adults in your 40s or whatever age, if you're asking me, the matchmaker, to sort your living arrangements out, you're not taking near enough ownership for your life here. So I said, my job is to bring and I hate to say it, bring the horse to water. It sounds a bit weird, but that's my job. But I can't make it drink and I can't sort out their living arrangements. And they do it in Ireland all the time. They will say stuff like, well, I live in Dublin. But I'm a teacher and I've got a permanent role as a teacher. So I can't be ever convinced or guaranteed of getting another permanent role if he lives in Galway. What if I fall in love with the man from Galway, Feargal? What happens then, huh? Yeah. And they're giving out. They're like potentially like catastrophizing this love that we've created for the two of them. I'm like, are you seriously giving out about potentially falling in love here? Number one, you're putting the cart way before the horse. And number two, would that not be a lovely situation to be in?
I know. That literally happened to me also last week when I was at home. I matched some guys in San Diego, which is about an hour, depending, but this particular guy was an hour from me. And he said, "You're far from me." Again, an hour drive. "You're far from me. Do you have a teleport machine?" And I was like, "Teleportation?" Oh. And so I said, "The type of man and relationship I'm looking for is more important than proximity." And he replied, "Good luck with that. You're going to have to find someone that doesn't value their time." And I unmatched him because I was like, I can't talk to this guy. But I'm thinking, I used to commute to downtown LA in terrible traffic to a job that I hated. It took me 2 hours. I hated the job. I would commute an hour to be with someone that like I'm madly in love with. An hour. I mean, you know what I mean? And I was open to a relationship with someone I met that was a plane flight away. Actually, 2 people I've met. I was like, I would be open to having an epic relationship that I would have to figure out. Yes, we wouldn't spend every night on the couch together. But to your point about you play golf and I have my hobbies, like I have a life. I have kids. I have things that I want to do. Like, let's carve out a big portion of time. And then over time, we figure out how to make living arrangements work as you deepen into the relationship. But I was kind of shocked that more people weren't open to an epic love over convenience.
Oh, yes. An awful lot of people would jeopardize and sacrifice convenience for suitability. And it's terrifying. And like a lot of guys will do it because they think, oh, sure, I just want a woman to meet. And that's all I want. I was like, well, there's a little bit more to it. How about that little connection, the spark, the qualities, the characteristics? How about that? But then the women are like, well, he has to be this, but then I only want to meet people within this radius of my house because I work as a HR consultant for a large multinational and I live in Dublin 6 and I only want to meet guys within, Dublin 6 area. And the problem there is for every, there's twice as many women living in urban areas than men. Yeah. And so in all the major cities in Ireland, there are twice as many females. And so the issue is when they go on Tinder, same as over there, everywhere, they go on Tinder or Bumble or whatever they go on to, and they have this radius of about 15 kilometers associated with their profile because that's handy, because that ties in nicely with my Wednesday night yoga. My pickleball is the latest craze. My brother's all about pickleball right now.
Yeah, I played it for a little while.
Yeah. And so, I've got a pickleball court there, and I do that on Thursday, and I can't miss that because Taylor Swift's going to do that with, is Taylor doing it with Elon? Or no, Taylor's doing that with someone? Taylor
She
Swift?
is?
I think
I
so. Someone
didn't
big
know
anyway.
that.
Anyway, I digress. So the whole thing about, my life, my this, my that, I'm the most important person in the whole world, and that's it. And they have to tie in with me. I was like, well, no, statistically, you're outnumbering men. So if you're not willing to travel halfway to meet this guy who lives probably in rural Ireland, well then, and if he's sitting on his farm and he won't leave his farm, well, don't moan at me for being single for the rest of your life, because he'll often say, oh, but I've got this farm and I can't leave there now. I was like, so will you find out if she's willing to move to me from Limerick to Kerry? I was like, what if she has a restaurant and she works in Limerick and she's really successful? Why the hell should she sell her restaurant to move down to your farm? Why are you more important than her? I was like, do you think she's going to say yes to meeting you if I tell her that she has to be willing to give up her life just to live with you? Do you think that's going to be attractive to her? Yeah, no. I'm like, I think you're putting the cart before the horse. I think you got the wrong attitude towards this, and I think you're expecting a little bit too much out of this. So we just say, look, this is not going to work for you. So meet the person, see how it goes, and then test the water. But my God, just people have to understand that the travel thing, if the two people have that connection, they will honestly work it out. We've got situations in here where I know of one where they got together and they were so happy. One of the guys one of the couple had to move to Australia after about 4 months. And they just said, well, okay, that's a bit shitty, but we're going to make it work because we have this strong bond. So we'll just do FaceTime for the next year or two. And they did. And they went over and back twice or 3 times or something like that. And when you know, you know. So when people to me on the phone make these statements of, oh, well, long distance doesn't work for me because he's in San Diego and I'm in whatever, wherever it is. That doesn't work for me because, no, I have proof because it didn't work out with your man. I was like, number one, that was one episode, one person, one life, that's not stop making sweeping statements. My other thing is, if a person doesn't want to travel and meet you, and if the guy is like that, I'd be like, well, isn't it great that you don't waste your time meeting an a-hole like that? Because God Almighty, they show their toxic kind of presence. They spew it down the phone, thinking
and you
that
have to pay attention instead of trying to explain them to your way of thinking. That's definitely something that I've learned. It's kind of like, I'm just going to leave you right there because you just showed me how, if you're supposed to be putting your best foot forward and that's what you say, it's just kind of like, okay, we're done here. Okay, so I have a couple questions for you because I know you're busy and you have all these businesses, and I can't believe I'm just so grateful that you took the time to invite me to your offices and meet with you. So 2 questions. One is, let's talk about drinking. So there's a lot of on a first date. So in America, I have been given the advice, probably rightly so, because if you think I'm an overshare, which I definitely am, I identify as an overshare, without alcohol, with alcohol, it's not a good thing. So it's like the oversharing is magnified with no filter, which is, I like to say part of my charm, but maybe not. So in America, I've been given the advice not to drink on a first date. And I don't want to sound like I'm stereotyping or generalizing, but having been in the UK for a couple days, I can see how drinking is a very social component. And there's a lot of pubs and good times being had by all, including myself. I'm very much enjoying your country. But my question is, what do you have a different position on drinking on a first date? Is it weird to abstain from alcohol on a first date?
Well, it's not that it's weird, but in Ireland you would need to caveat it at the outset by saying, I'm not a dry shite. I am not drinking tonight because I've got the car, because I've got an early start tomorrow, because I'm doing my pickleball tournament or whatever, and probably not here. It's not here yet. I'll bring it here next. That'll be my 4th business. So no, because Irish people automatically go to, oh, she doesn't drink. Definitely an issue there with alcohol abuse. That's automatically where they go. Or if it's not
you don't drink, you have a problem with alcohol.
Yes, it couldn't possibly be for health reasons. It couldn't possibly be that you're doing a marathon or doing an Iron Woman or whatever. It has to go to straight to either boring or alcoholism or parents who are like abusive drunks.
Okay.
It is. It is. That's where they go. Now, do I? And then an awful lot of Irish guys will lean into the Dutch courage in the hopes of just building up that confidence that they need. But they'll often just drink pint after pint, then start rocking back and forth at the side of the, just being creepier and creepier as the night goes on. And the women are there having their gin and tonics, having the crack, just talking to each other, getting to know, like, haven't seen you in 2 months, Mary, circa, blah, blah, blah. Let's like chat. And then he rocks up and just falls around the place, like dribbling and she's not loving that. So she's like, get away from you, drunk mess. This is ridiculous. And so then Irish guys get annoyed because, she's too up herself. She's really cocky and she was rude to me. I was like, well, you couldn't stand up straight. So maybe ease off don't have 10 pints, maybe try with 3 and see how that works for you. On dates, it can be very embarrassing. We've had situations in the past where, Mary would go out on the date with Johnny and then Mary would guzzle back about 2 bottles of Pinot and he'd be like, Jesus Christ, I had to get her into the taxi. That was embarrassing. Or they do it before they meet and then it's just really, really, really messy. And then they make decisions that they probably shouldn't make. And they say things that are offensive. They try to be over funny. They overshare, but they share stuff about their previous exes and they start bitching and moaning about the ex and like, that says so many things that you're not ready for dating and you haven't gotten over your person. Oh, stop it. So yeah, I mean, if you're not in control of your senses and your speech, then maybe abstain. But also moderation is key. Balance is key. If you can do 2 drinks, just show that you're open to that, then that would be more the dumb thing here in Ireland.
So I'm kind of like a lightweight in the sense that like I've identified the drink that I can handle without issues is champagne, which I know probably comes off as too fancy or whatever, but I own it. So it's funny trying to get champagne in these Irish pubs, but that's another story. So yeah. So usually 1 is enough. I don't go too far, but 1 is enough to kind of set the stage and whatever. If I have 2 though, that's my max. Like really it's my max. So having the self-awareness to know that it's kind of like maybe have half. I can have like half a glass. But that's good to know that if I don't drink, I have to explain that I do drink. I'm just choosing not to in this moment.
And if you do say that, don't follow up with, it's because I'm a total mess if I do have the 3rd glass, but it's actually because I'm doing this thing tomorrow. That's better.
Okay, don't share. My clothes come off or, I make decisions. Okay.
Because someone said to me recently, oh my God, what did they say? They said, do I have to tell you exactly why I broke up with that person? And that 10-year relationship broke up. Do I have to go into the detail of it? I was like, well, no, you don't have to tell us. But now that you didn't tell us, but you said that, I'm thinking, what the hell? Did you beat her up? What are you talking about? Everyone's going to go to the worst case scenario. Right. And it might just be that, we just fell out of love. I was like, don't say that. Don't, like, I used to sell houses and then I'd show them on a Friday the house, and then it'd say, I really want to come back at the weekends when I can soak up the atmosphere at the weekends. Can I come by and walk into the garden on a Sunday? It's like, well, if you didn't tell me, I wouldn't have known. But now you've said that, I had to tell the vendor, you idiot. It's like sometimes you don't need to, but then there's certain things people need. You need to be going into certain detail because what will people think if I don't say it? They will probably go to the worst.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I had wondered that kind of about sharing my podcast with people. Do I share it on it feels a little bit, since I have this dating podcast, as you know, it feels a little bit like a lie to not share it. But I also feel like it's not something I have to advertise on the first date necessarily, especially if they're not even newsworthy and they're not going to, go in. I have so many different responses. So, and
you don't just identify as this. You are doing a lot of things. You are a lot of different things all the time. And I would only say that you would need to divulge information like that is if you're seeing it move into a 2nd or a 3rd or a 4th kind of date. And then you're also going to have to say to the person, because in Ireland, especially, in America, it might even attract them. But in Ireland, they would be so anti that. They'd be like, what? I mean, I have friends who won't even like my stuff on social media. They're married. And they think, oh, but I couldn't possibly, because then my wife might think. I was like, I know your wife. We're friends. We literally go out all the time together. They know you're not going to go anywhere and you're not doing anything wrong. You're just supporting a friend's business. But they don't think about that at all. They just think, oh, everyone's going to talk about me. But I think at the same time, it's like people say to me, oh, I've got kids. Should I hide that from them? I was like, well, no, because they're your children, and I don't think you should deny
They're
that.
not going anywhere, right?
And if the guy has a problem with you having kids, or with you having a podcast that talks about dating and the pitfalls of and how to navigate the whole dating world, well, then what the hell are they paranoid about? Are they worried about,
Point. No, that's a good point, though. It's kind of like, I mean, just like the kids example, it's like, it's not going anywhere. It's, important to me. And you either accept it or you don't, and I don't need to, hide parts of me to.
No, and it's good if he shows his true colors from the get-go, because then you're not wasting your time or anybody else's time. And it rules them out. Like, that's what an awful lot of people say as well. Oh, I wouldn't date anyone who worked in that career, because they make sweeping generalizations about, like, guards because they abuse their power, and nurses they're really cocky because they look after people all the time and they're a bit too empathetic. It's like, what's too empathetic? That's weird. And teachers, they talk down to you like a bold child, and they point their finger at you all the time. They talk to me like I'm a little infant. It's like, well, again, sweeping generalization. I mean, some probably
maybe
can.
When you were a child and you had a teacher that happened, but like not
Well,
necessarily now.
Well, funny story. In Ireland, you're only able to do teach junior infants, is like 4 and 5 year olds, for I think 2 years, because it makes you sort of behave in a little bit of an infantile kind of way. And our friend's sister did this when she was at a restaurant, and she started to order and said, I would like a bowl of soup, please. I was like, oh my gosh. She's like, I have to stop. I have to move on to a higher grade. This is too much.
Okay, so final question.
Yes.
As you know, the premise of my podcast is a bucket list. I go out and I kind of do things on a spectrum of embarrassment to help me meet guys and hopefully find love. So while I'm here in Dublin, and I'm also going to Manchester, any task that you think I should put on my list and do?
Oh, funny you asked that. We had a debate in the office just there, and it was all about emasculating men and what emasculates them. And the way to navigate and to source the guys who actually have enough self-esteem to be able to cope with strong, powerful women who are successful and all the rest. And so we've had a few situations whereby guys would come and join intro because the girlfriend proposed to him. Yeah. And so, as much to say, you Irish, lazy, whatever, you didn't hurry up. You were not putting a ring on it. So I'm going to take the initiative here, and I'm going to just, take the reins, and I'm going to do this. So, and a few of them did it in the public places in front of the entire family. So all the relatives could see. So it's like saying, you're slow. You're not a manly man. You're not making decisions. I'm done wasting time and waiting for you. So I'm going to do that. So, and not to be really crude, and I don't know how crude I can get here, but it's basically like, chopping the guys and eating it in front of them. It really is. It no matter what people think, it's absolutely emasculating. And whether it's a leap year or not is neither here nor there. If the guy hasn't done it, he hasn't done it for a reason. If you are wanting it to happen, the two of you need to discuss it openly and actually say, let's actually, are we going there? Are we going to be doing this? And if we are doing this, let's make a plan. If the guy won't make the plan, if you said it and said it and said it, and he still won't do it, you proposing to him is probably not going to make it work.
You're not going to ask me to propose to somebody, right?
No, I'm going to ask you to approach a group of guys around the UK, around Ireland, the UK, and ask them what their reaction will be if a woman proposed to them. And a lot of woke guys who want to be really 2023 will say, oh, it's fine. Sure. I mean, equal, it's fine, whatever. They do not mean that. I'm telling you now, they do not mean it. They're just saying to try and be current and zeitgeisty. I think that's a very good conversation starter, because that would break the ice immediately. And you can say, I'm doing it for a podcast. You can say whatever. Also, asking a guy, like, here, I'm not weird, but do you want a drink? It's a great, like, first one-liner. Just get out there, and because a lot of guys will suspect that, oh, who's this one lurking around the bar? Does she want me to buy her, like, lots of Dom Perignon because I heard that's all she drinks? I'm just teasing.
Oh, okay.
But yeah,
That's
do
good to
that.
know.
I
They
honestly think you should
assume
go
that
and do that.
you want a drink. So if I offer to buy them one, that's kind
Yeah,
of
and I don't want one back. And I don't want one back. I'm not looking for anything in return. I'm not a weirdo. If you like Irish guys and guys around the UK, they are funny. They have a good sense of humor and they would like banter. They love if the woman is fun. They love if the woman is good crack. If you're a good crack and you look after yourself, bonus. That's what they say. I want someone who's good fun, looks after herself, pride in appearance, not too serious, says yes when she means yes, no when she means no. But if you're a blunt without being offensive, if you're just honest without being intimidatingly confident, then you're fine.
Okay. I can do that.
I think you should do that.
Okay. Challenge accepted.
Good. And we should follow up.
Okay, we will. Okay. Now it's our second call.
So, how did it go? Tell me everything. Did you do what I asked?
Yes, I did what you asked. So, trying to find a guy to buy a drink for was harder than I expected in Dublin. We went to Neary's.
Neary's, amazing, yeah.
Neary's. And we went to the other old man pub, Keogh's.
Yeah, Keogh's.
We went to both of those. I can't remember which was which, but one of them, definitely there were a lot of guys together that seemed like maybe they were together.
Yes.
So,
really?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like Pride Week, or it was Pride Week. So I didn't want to step on anyone's toes there. So I just, in that scenario, I was just kind of like hung out with my girlfriends, had a great time. But they were on board with making this happen for me. So then we went to the other one and it was like packed. And I was with my friend Charlotte and she was amazing. She just walked. These guys were sitting around this big barrel with all these bar stools all chatting. A group of probably like 10. And she just walked right up and sat down. Like there was one stool there and she just sat right next to him. She's from Manchester. And I was like, oh my God, what's happening? Well, pretty quickly I could see every single one of them was wearing a wedding ring, which is not, what the scene is. So it was just, I couldn't find a way in. I would walk past a group of guys or two guys talking and they'd be so engrossed in each other. I was like, I'm not gonna push my way in. There has to be some. So we go back. We're staying at the Grafton hotel. We go back to the hotel bar and we sit there and there's a man. He looks very Irish to me. Not that I know what Irish looks like, but he looks very Irish to me. So he's sitting at the bar and he turns around and he winks at me. And I'm like, oh my God, I've never been winked at before. Like that, if that's not an invitation, I don't know what is. Back in the day of like COVID where everyone wore masks, the advice I kept getting from dating coaches would be, you should wink at a guy. I'm like, there is no way if I wink at a guy, that's going to attract him. He's going to think I'm having a stroke or something terrible is happening. I am not going to do that. So I've never been winked at. I've never winked at anybody. And I was like, this is a sign. So my friends are like, go, go, go. And he's just sitting at the bar by himself. So I'm like, I have to do this. Feargal told me I have to do this. I'm going to go do this. So I go up and I sit down. He looks like an alien just landed on the bar stool next to him. He goes, what are you doing here? That's what I thought was Irish, but turns out he's Polish. He's like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, you winked at me. Like I came to buy you a drink. No. I buy you a drink. And I'm like, no, this is going in the wrong direction. Like, I don't want anything to do with this man. So then he starts rubbing my leg and my friends are like, should we save her? And I'm like, and they're like, they all decide amongst themselves that I have to like grow up and learn how to, handle my own boundaries. So I'm still trying to like win the, challenge and get him to let me buy him a drink. And so I talked to him for a while. He was seriously shocked that I came over. And I thought, you turned around and winked at me. What did you think was going to happen? I mean, I'm sure it's actually funny. He probably never has people respond to that just because he's such a creeper, but he didn't let me buy him a drink. And at least I did the exercise. I did not ask him about proposing marriage because I already was like, I think mission accomplished here.
He doesn't sound like the guy.
No. So while we were out, though, I did ask when we were in Manchester a bunch of the guys that I met, and I didn't have to buy any. I didn't even have the chance to buy anyone drinks in Manchester. People, I told you my drink max is 2.
Yeah.
I had probably 5 and then 3 shots. So I definitely, it was. I learned that I have reverse beer goggles. And all the men that I talked to all night were like gorgeous, but I didn't know it because I was so intoxicated. So anyway, that's another story. But I asked the question that you asked about whether they wanted to be proposed to. And the first guy I met was a barrister, and he was very into women's rights, and his boss is a woman, and he was talking about how great she was. She was the one that bought me my first shot. And I said, out of curiosity, would you want a woman to propose to you? He looked horrified. He was like, no. Like, it was like he couldn't say no enough times. He seemed totally disgusted. And then he was like, I mean, I believe in women's equality. And I was like, you don't have to explain. I agree with you. Like, it's fine. I'm not trying to propose. And I got that same reaction from all the men I asked. I talked to a South African guy. I talked to a bunch of guys. They all had the same reaction except for one. One guy who happened to be married, and I think was kind of in that like woke place that you were talking about, where he was like trying to like really show that he was like, it would depend. It would depend. But he turned out to be, and he may be in an open marriage. I don't know, but he was definitely hitting very heavily on my friend and asking to, leave with her. So I feel like maybe he has a different understanding of marriage. And so maybe in that circumstance, he was okay with the proposal coming because it doesn't have as much weight as maybe someone else.
Yes, and especially he needs and wants to look like he is this open-minded kind of character if he's especially looking to cheat on his wife with your friend. So he thinks, if I say, yes, I love when women are empowered and they ask to marry me, if I say that, well, then maybe I'm going to get a sure thing here with this other person. I think that might have been it.
Yeah. So that was a little skewed of an answer, but definitely I met some great people with the assignment. I did it. I tried to do the drink thing. Maybe I'll try it here when I, go back to America. But that was it.
Amazing. Well done.
So thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me and giving us all this amazing advice. It was so much fun. How much I appreciate it.
I love talking all things dating anytime. So let's do it again whenever you want.
Okay. But we have a lot of things to cover. We touched on a lot of things. So,
yes, we have so much.
Yeah, absolutely.